It was almost midnight when Marcus Reed finally looked up from his desk. The lights in the tall office building were mostly off. The city outside his window was quiet. Only a few cars moved on the empty streets below. Marcus was not just any businessman. He was the CEO of one of the fastest-growing retail companies in the country. People respected him. Business magazines wrote about him. Many young entrepreneurs looked up to him. But tonight he did not feel proud. He felt uneasy. On his desk were several printed emails. They were not business deals. They were not profit reports. They were complaints. Some were anonymous. Some were written by workers who asked him not to share their names. The messages all said something similar. "Sir, we are not treated fairly. Managers shout at us. Some employees get special treatment. We are afraid to speak." Marcus leaned back in his chair. He read the emails again slowly. His face became serious. He built this company from nothing. Years ago, he started with one small store and a dream. He worked day and night. He believed in hard work, honesty, and respect. He always told his team that people matter more than profit. So how could this be happening? For a moment, he thought maybe it was just a few unhappy workers. Every company has small problems. Maybe someone was exaggerating. But something in his heart told him this was bigger. Marcus remembered his own early days. As a young black man trying to succeed in business, he faced many silent struggles. Some people did not believe in him. Some judged him before they even knew him. He worked twice as hard to prove himself. He promised himself something back then. "If I ever become a leader," he once said quietly, "I will create a company where everyone feels respected." Now he wondered, had he failed? He stood up and walked toward the window. The reflection of his face in the glass looked tired. Successful, yes, but tired. He realized something painful. Over the years, as the company grew larger, he had become more distant. He trusted reports from senior managers. He looked at numbers, sales charts, and performance reviews. But numbers do not show fear. Numbers do not show disrespect. Numbers do not show tears in the break room. Maybe he had been too far from the real truth. The next morning, Marcus called his executive team for a meeting. They talked about sales growth and expansion plans. Everything looked perfect on paper. Profits were rising. Customer satisfaction scores were high. No one mentioned employee complaints. When Marcus asked directly about staff morale, one manager quickly replied, "Everything is under control. Our teams are happy." The answer felt too smooth, too fast. Marcus did not argue. He simply nodded. But inside, a decision was forming. That evening, alone in his office again, he opened his laptop and searched for something unusual. He began planning something bold, something risky. He would go undercover, not as a CEO, not as a visitor, but as a regular worker. He would change his clothes. He would remove his expensive watch. He would use a different name. No one would know who he really was. He wanted to see the truth with his own eyes. He knew this would not be easy. If people discovered him, it could damage trust, could create chaos. But if he did nothing, the culture of his company might become something he never wanted. A few days later, Marcus stood in front of a mirror at home. He wore simple jeans and a plain shirt. He looked like an ordinary man searching for work. He barely recognized himself. He introduced himself to the HR department under the name Mark Rivers, a temporary worker hired for training purposes. His first assignment was at one of the busiest stores in the city. As he walked toward the building early that morning, he felt something he had not felt in years. Nervous. Not because he was afraid of hard work. He was not. He had done every job in this company before. He was nervous because he did not know what he would discover. Would the complaints be true? Would his managers really treat workers badly? Would the company he loved be hiding something ugly? The store doors opened. Employees walked in quietly. No one noticed him. No one knew who he truly was. He took a deep breath. Today, he would not be the powerful CEO. Today, he would be invisible. And what he was about to witness would change everything he believed about his own company. The automatic doors of the store opened with a soft sound. Marcus stepped inside, holding a small paper that said he was a new temporary worker. His heart was calm, but his mind was alert. Today he was not Marcus Reed, the CEO. Today he was simply Mark. The store was bright and clean. Shelves were full. Music played softly in the background. To customers, everything looked perfect. But Marcus was not there to look at shelves. He was there to look at people. At the front counter, a young woman stood checking her phone. Marcus walked toward her and smiled politely. "Hi, I'm the new hire," he said gently. She looked at him for a second, then looked back at her phone. "Talk to the manager," she said without smiling. No welcome, no handshake, no kindness. Marcus nodded and walked toward the back office. Inside, he found the store manager, Mr. Collins, a tall man in his 40s with a serious face. Mr. Collins did not stand up when Marcus entered. "You're the temp?" the manager asked quickly. "Yes, sir." "Okay. Uniform is in that locker. Training video is 20 minutes. After that, go help in storage." That was it. No explanation of company values. No introduction to the team. No friendly words. Marcus felt something strange. This was not how he trained people when he started the company years ago. Back then, every new worker was welcomed like family. He quietly changed into the uniform. It felt different wearing the company logo without authority behind it. In the storage room, he met 3 other workers. Daniel, a quiet young man. Rosa, a single mother working 2 jobs. And Jamal, a college student saving money for school. They looked tired. "New guy?" Jamal asked. Marcus nodded. "Good luck," Jamal said with a small laugh. "Just try not to make mistakes." The tone was not playful. It was warning. As the morning continued, Marcus watched carefully. The manager walked through the store with a hard expression. When employees moved slowly, he spoke sharply. "Faster. Don't just stand there. Think before you act." His voice was not loud, but it was cold. Around noon, Marcus saw something that made him uncomfortable. A customer shouted at Rosa about a refund. Rosa tried to explain store policy calmly. The customer became rude. Instead of supporting Rosa, Mr. Collins walked over and said, "Just give her what she wants. And next time, don't argue with customers." Rosa looked embarrassed. She had done nothing wrong. Marcus saw the hurt in her eyes. She stayed quiet. She needed the job. Later, during lunch break, the workers sat in a small break room. The room felt heavy. No one laughed. No one looked relaxed. Daniel finally spoke. "Have you noticed?" he said softly. "Some people always get the good shifts?" Jamal nodded. "Yeah, if you're close to the manager, life is easy." Rosa added, "I asked for weekends off for my kids." He said no, but others get it. Marcus listened carefully. No one complained loudly. They spoke like people who had already accepted unfairness. Then something else happened. A new shipment arrived. The boxes were heavy. Daniel tried to lift one alone. Mr. Collins walked by and said, "You need to be stronger. This job isn't for everyone." Daniel's face turned red. He tried again. Marcus stepped forward and helped him lift the box. The manager did not thank them. Instead, he said, "Move faster." Marcus felt a deep discomfort growing inside him. This was not about one bad moment. It was about the atmosphere. There was no encouragement, no teamwork, no respect. In the afternoon, Marcus made a small mistake while scanning inventory. The numbers were slightly off. Mr. Collins walked over. "Did you even watch the training video?" he asked sharply. "Yes, sir. I'm still learning." "Well, learn faster. We don't babysit here." The words hit harder than they should have. Marcus had led board meetings with billion-dollar investors. He had faced critics and competitors. But hearing that tone, directed at someone who was simply trying to learn, felt different, felt wrong. As the day ended, Marcus stood near the exit watching the team clean up. No one thanked them for their hard work. No one said, "Good job." They clocked out quietly and left. Marcus walked to his car slowly. The sky was dark again. His body was tired from physical work. but his mind was more tired from what he saw. The company looked successful from the outside, but inside the store people felt small. He realized something important that night. Disrespect does not always scream. Sometimes it whispers every day, and those whispers slowly break people. This was only his first day, and already he had seen enough to know the complaints were not lies, but he had a feeling the worst was still waiting to be uncovered. Rosa approached the assistant manager to request a schedule change for one day. Her son had a school event. The manager did not even look up. "We're short-staffed," he said. "But others got Saturday off last week," Rosa replied carefully. The manager finally looked at her. "They earned it." The meaning was clear. "You did not." Rosa walked away quietly. Marcus realized something deeply painful. The system rewarded loyalty to managers, not hard work. It rewarded silence, not integrity. As the shift ended, Marcus stayed behind again. He watched employees clock out. No one laughed. No one stayed to talk. They left like people escaping something heavy. Marcus stepped outside into the cool night air. He looked up at the sign of his own store glowing above him. Customers saw a successful brand. Investors saw strong numbers. But inside, there was fear, favoritism, and quiet discrimination. Tonight, something changed inside him. This was no longer observation. This was personal. The sentence still echoed in his mind. "People like you should be grateful." Marcus closed his eyes for a moment. He had heard similar words in his own life years ago. He had fought against that mindset. He had promised to build something better. And now it lived inside his company. He knew one thing clearly. He could not wait much longer. The reveal was coming. But before that, he needed to see if this problem reached higher than one store. Because if this culture existed across branches, then the sickness was deeper than he feared. And he was ready to face it, no matter how ugly it became. By the third week, Marcus was no longer seen as the new guy. He had blended in. He moved boxes. He cleaned shelves. He worked long shifts without complaint. The other employees slowly began to trust him. They spoke more freely when he was around, and what they shared began to disturb him deeply. One evening, after closing time, Marcus stayed behind to help organize the back storage room. Daniel was there too. The room was quiet except for the sound of boxes being moved. Daniel suddenly stopped and leaned against the wall. "Can I tell you something?" he asked quietly. Marcus nodded. "I've been here 2 years," Daniel said. "I've never been late. I've never missed a shift. But I've asked for a promotion 3 times. Every time they say I'm not ready." Marcus listened carefully. "Last month," Daniel continued, "a new guy joined. He's friends with the assistant manager. He got promoted in 3 weeks." There was no anger in Daniel's voice. There was something worse. Acceptance. Marcus felt a tightness in his chest. Later that week, he noticed something else. During a team meeting, employees were asked to share ideas to improve sales. Rosa raised her hand. She suggested a simple display change that could attract more customers. Before she could finish speaking, the manager cut her off. "That won't work," he said quickly. 5 minutes later, another employee repeated almost the same idea. This time, the manager nodded. "Now that's smart thinking," he said with a smile. Marcus saw Rosa's face fall. She looked down at the table and stayed quiet for the rest of the meeting. It was subtle, but it was real. As the days passed, Marcus began noticing patterns that were impossible to ignore. Certain employees were spoken to with respect. Others were given orders like machines. Certain workers were coached and trained. Others were criticized publicly for small mistakes. He started writing everything down at home each night. Names, dates, situations. He was no longer just observing. He was gathering truth. One afternoon, something happened that made his stomach turn. A delivery arrived late. The manager was already in a bad mood. He began shouting in the storage area. "Why is this not organized? Do I have to do everything myself?" he yelled. Jamal tried to explain that the truck arrived late and they were short-staffed. Before Jamal could finish, the manager stepped closer. Excuses, he snapped. Maybe this job is too complicated for you. The room became silent. Marcus watched Jamal's hands shake slightly. Jamal looked down and said nothing. It was not just correction. It was humiliation. In that moment, Marcus realized something painful. The fear in this workplace was normal. People were not motivated by pride. They were motivated by fear of losing their jobs. Later that same day, Marcus overheard something that froze him in place. Two supervisors were speaking near the office door. They did not see him behind the shelf. One of them laughed and said quietly, "We need people who fit the image of this brand." The other replied, "Yeah, some of these guys just don't look leadership material." There was a short silence. Then one of them added, "You know what I mean." They both laughed softly. Marcus did not need them to explain. He understood. The words were not loud, but they were clear. It was not just bad management. It was bias. It was quiet discrimination hiding behind polite language. Marcus stood there for several seconds after they walked away. He felt anger rising inside him, but he also felt sadness. He remembered his younger self. He remembered walking into rooms where people doubted him before he even spoke. He had built this company to be different, and yet, inside his own walls, the same sickness was growing. That evening, Rosa stayed late to finish reports. Marcus offered to help. As they worked, she spoke softly. "Sometimes I feel invisible," she said. "Like no matter how hard I try, it doesn't matter." Marcus looked at her carefully. "Why stay?" he asked gently. She smiled sadly. "Because I need the job." Those 4 words hit him harder than anything else. Because I need the job. Not because I feel valued. Not because I feel respected. Because I have no choice. As Marcus drove home that night, his thoughts were heavy. The company was making record profits. Customers were happy. Investors were impressed. But inside, something was broken. Not one incident. Not one bad manager. A system. Culture. And he realized something frightening. If he had not gone undercover, he would have never known. He would have continued celebrating numbers. While his people silently suffered, Marcus gripped the steering wheel tightly. He was no longer just curious. He was disgusted. But he also knew something else. He could not reveal himself yet. Not until he understood how deep this problem truly went. And deep down, he had a feeling. By the 4th week, Marcus no longer needed proof. He needed strength. Every day he walked into the store as Mark, but inside he carried the weight of everything he had seen. The quiet bias, the unfair promotions, the cold tone of leadership, the fear in people's eyes. But nothing prepared him for what happened on Friday afternoon. It was one of the busiest days of the month. A big sale had brought in large crowds. The store was full. Employees rushed from shelf to shelf helping customers. Daniel was assigned to handle inventory at the front counter. He was careful, as always. Marcus stood nearby restocking small items, watching everything closely. Then it happened. A customer complained loudly that she had been charged twice for the same product. The assistant manager quickly checked the system and saw a duplicate charge. Without asking questions, he turned toward Daniel. "You did this," he said sharply. Daniel looked confused. "Sir, I only scanned it once." The assistant manager did not listen. "I saw you rushing. This is your mistake." Customers nearby began to watch. The air felt tight. Daniel tried again. "Sir, maybe the system." "Enough," the manager snapped. "Stop blaming the system. Just admit it." Marcus felt his heartbeat rise. He had been standing close enough to see the screen earlier. He knew something important. Daniel was not even logged into the system at the time of the transaction. The charge had been processed under the assistant manager's own login. Marcus stepped forward slightly, ready to speak. But he stopped himself. Not yet. He needed to see how far this would go. The assistant manager continued, louder now. "This is why some people don't move up. Careless mistakes." The words were sharp, personal. Daniel's face turned pale. He looked at the floor. He did not fight back. The manager turned to the customer and forced a smile. "We'll fix this." Sorry for the inconvenience. Then he leaned close to Daniel and whispered harshly, After this shift, come to my office. Marcus felt something burning inside him. After the crowd cleared, Marcus quietly checked the register system when no one was looking. He confirmed it. The assistant manager had made the error himself. But he blamed Daniel to protect his image. This was not just unfair. This was abuse of power. An hour later, Marcus saw Daniel walk into the small office at the back of the store. The door closed. Marcus moved closer without being obvious. Through the thin wall, he could hear raised voices. You embarrassed me in front of customers, the assistant manager said. I didn't mean to, sir, Daniel replied softly. You need to learn your place. Silence. Then the manager said something that made Marcus freeze. People like you should be grateful to even have this job. The words were quiet, but they carried weight. Marcus felt disgust wash over him. Not just at the sentence, but at what it meant. The tone, the history behind it, the message that some people are less. He stepped away from the wall before he did something he would regret. A few minutes later, Daniel came out of the office. His eyes were red, but he tried to act normal. Marcus walked beside him toward the storage room. You okay? Marcus asked softly. Daniel forced a small smile. Yeah, it's fine. But it was not fine. In the storage room, Daniel suddenly sat down on a box. I can't lose this job, he whispered. My mom depends on me. Marcus felt his throat tighten. The company he built to empower people was now making them feel powerless. He looked around the storage room, the shelves, the logo on the boxes, his company's name everywhere. And yet, the values were missing. That evening, something even worse happened. Monday morning felt normal. Employees walked into the main branch quietly, coffee cups in hand, faces tired, managers checking schedules, the usual routine. No one knew that this day would change everything. At 9 a.m., an email was sent to all branch managers and regional leaders. Mandatory leadership meeting at headquarters. Attendance required. No explanation. Some managers complained quietly. Some were nervous, but no one guessed the real reason. At 10:30 a.m., the conference room at headquarters was full. Branch managers from different locations sat around the long table. Regional directors stood near the wall. Everyone expected a discussion about sales numbers or expansion plans. The room buzzed with small talk. Then the door opened. Silence fell instantly. Marcus Reed walked in. But this time he was not wearing jeans. He was not wearing a simple uniform. He wore his sharp black CEO suit. Clean, powerful, confident. He walked slowly to the front of the room. Some managers smiled nervously. Others straightened their posture. They had no idea what was coming. Marcus did not smile. He placed a thick folder on the table. I have spent the last month working inside our stores, he said calmly. Confused looks filled the room. As a temporary worker, the silence grew heavier. One manager blinked repeatedly. Another shifted in his chair. Marcus continued. I worked under your supervision. I lifted boxes. I cleaned floors. I attended your meetings. He opened the folder. And I witnessed things that disgusted me. No one spoke. You could hear the air conditioner humming in the background. Marcus began reading from his notes. Public humiliation of staff. Unfair scheduling used as punishment. Promotions based on favoritism. Disrespectful language. Quiet discrimination. Each sentence felt like a hammer hitting the table. Some managers avoided eye contact. Others looked shocked. Not because it was untrue, but because they were exposed. Marcus looked directly at one branch manager. Do you remember telling an employee, people like you should be grateful to have this job? The manager's face turned pale. I didn't mean it that way, he stuttered. How did you mean it? Marcus asked calmly. No answer came. Marcus turned to another leader. Do you remember blaming an employee for a system error you made? After what happened with Daniel, Marcus knew one thing clearly. This was not just one bad manager, but he needed proof. If the problem existed in only one store, it could be fixed quickly. A few changes, a few removals, a fresh start. But if the problem lived in many branches, then the company was sick from the inside. 2 days later, Marcus requested a temporary transfer through HR. As Mark, he said he wanted more training experience in another location. The request was approved quickly. No one cared enough to ask why. The next store was in a different part of the city. Larger, busier, more profitable. When Marcus walked inside on his first day there, the atmosphere felt different. The store looked modern. The employees moved fast. The managers smiled more. For a moment, Marcus felt relief. Maybe this branch was better. Maybe the first store was just an exception. But he had learned something important. The truth does not show itself in the first hour. It hides. By the third day, the mask began to slip. During a morning meeting, the branch manager praised top performers. He clapped loudly. He smiled widely. But Marcus noticed something strange. The same 2 or 3 names were always praised. Others stood silently at the back. After the meeting, Marcus approached one of the workers named Elena. She had been with the company for 4 years. "You've been here a long time," Marcus said casually. "Do you like working here?" Elena paused before answering. "It depends who you ask," she replied carefully. Marcus waited. She looked around to make sure no manager was close. "If you are close to leadership, you grow fast," she said quietly. "If not, you stay invisible." The word invisible again followed him from store to store. That afternoon, Marcus witnessed something even more disturbing. A young employee named Aaron accidentally dropped a small display stand. It broke. The assistant manager called him into the office. The door was not fully closed. Marcus passed by slowly and heard the conversation. "You cost this store money," the manager said sharply. "I'm sorry," Aaron replied. "It was an accident. Accidents happen when people don't pay attention." There was a short silence. Then the manager added something colder. "We have many people waiting for jobs. Don't think you're special." Marcus felt the same tight feeling in his chest. Fear. Leadership here was not building people. It was controlling them. Later that evening, Marcus checked the internal scheduling board. He noticed something that made him stop. Employees who had complained in the past. He recognized some names from emails, were scheduled for the hardest shifts. Late nights, early mornings, double weekends. Meanwhile, the favorites received balanced schedules. This was punishment without paperwork. Quiet retaliation. Marcus began speaking more with employees during breaks. Pattern formed. Ideas from certain workers were ignored. Performance reviews were vague and unfair. Promotions were rarely explained clearly. One worker told him, "Sometimes it feels like you have to change who you are to fit in." Marcus asked, "What do you mean?" The worker hesitated. "Talk a certain way, act a certain way, agree with everything, conform, not perform." That was the real requirement. On Friday evening, something happened that confirmed Marcus's worst fear. The regional director visited the store. This was a higher-level executive, someone who reported directly to headquarters. Everyone suddenly acted different. Managers became polite. They praised teamwork. They smiled more. The regional director walked around proudly. At one point, Marcus stood close enough to hear a quiet conversation between the branch manager and the director. "Our numbers are strong," the manager said confidently. The director nodded. "That's what matters. Just that. That's what matters. Not culture. Not fairness. Not growth of people. Just numbers." Marcus realized something heavy in that moment. The problem was not only store level. It was tolerated above. Maybe even protected. As the regional director left, employees returned to their usual silent rhythm. Smiles disappeared. The mask fell again. Marcus walked outside during his break and stood near the side of the building. He looked at the company logo shining above the entrance. He remembered the early days when he personally trained employees. When he told them, "Respect is not optional here." When did that message fade? Or had it been quietly replaced by something else? He thought about Daniel, about Rosa, about Elena. About Aaron. Different stores. Same fear. Same invisibility. Same quiet suffering. The sickness was not in one branch. It was spreading. Marcus understood something clearly now. If he simply removed one or two managers, nothing would change. Because the system itself allowed this behavior. The reward structure. The silence from higher levels. The focus on profit without accountability. As the sun began to set, Marcus made a decision. The reveal would not just expose individuals. It would expose the culture. And when he revealed himself, it would shake more than one store. It would shake the entire company. He took a deep breath. The time for observation was almost over. The time for action was coming. And when it arrived, no one would expect it. The room felt smaller. The managers were not used to being questioned. They were used to controlling the room. Today, they were not in control. Marcus closed the folder slowly. "You think I care only about numbers," he said firmly. "You think profit is all that matters." He paused. "But I built this company on respect." His voice was not loud, but it was strong. When leadership uses fear instead of fairness, we lose more than employees. We lose integrity. One regional director tried to speak. "Our profits have increased every quarter," he said carefully. Marcus looked at him directly. "At what cost?" Silence again. Marcus walked slowly around the table. "For weeks, I watched hardworking people feel invisible. I watched them accept unfair treatment because they needed their paycheck. I watched managers protect their image instead of protecting their team." He stopped walking. "This ends today." The words were clear. Some managers knew what that meant. Terminations, restructuring, investigation. Marcus continued. "Effective immediately, we are launching an internal culture audit across all branches. Anonymous reporting channels will go directly to my office. Leadership roles will be reviewed. And anyone who built their power through fear will lose it." One manager raised his hand nervously. "You went undercover without telling us?" "Yes," Marcus replied, "because I needed truth, not reports." The power in the room had shifted completely. For years, these leaders believed they were untouchable. Today, they realized they were accountable. Marcus finished with one final statement. "You forgot something important. Leadership is service, not control." He picked up the folder. "And I will never again lead from a distance." Without another word, he walked out. Inside the room, silence remained. Some managers stared at the table. Some whispered quietly. Some knew their time was over. But in the stores, something else was happening. Later that afternoon, an announcement was sent to all employees. CEO Marcus Reed has personally reviewed store culture and will be implementing immediate changes to ensure fairness, respect, and accountability. Employees read the email in disbelief. Daniel stared at his phone. Rosa read it twice. Jamal whispered, "He actually sees us." For the first time in a long time, hope entered the building. Marcus stood in his office looking out at the city again. But this time he did not feel uneasy. He felt clear. The reveal was done. The truth was exposed. But he knew something else. Revealing the problem was only the first step. Now he had to rebuild trust. And rebuilding would be harder than exposing. But he was ready. Because now everyone knew one thing for sure. The CEO was watching. And this company would never be the same again.